A Bloodbath in the Border Princes, Part 1, Introduction. Barnabas Bramblepatch rubbed his eyes again and yawned for what must have been the 10th time this watch. Never the most sprightly of halflings, he nevertheless found himself feeling more tired than usual as he made his rounds throughout the stately home. As he patrolled the empty corridors, his mind kept drifting back to the tasty remnants of the fish pie his wife had made for dinner. Barnabas had told her to save him the rest for tomorrow's breakfast, but he had debated whether he could leave his post for a minute to stop by for a late-night snack. The thoughts continued to drift from his mind as he passed by the open door of the manor's study. He peered in to make sure none of his master's important papers were disturbed before stopping by the large circular window that dominated the far wall. He leaned his short spear against a bookshelf and went to open the window, hoping that some cool night air would wake him up. Unfortunately, the air proved to be warmer than normal, and Barnabas picked up his spear and went back to his rounds, a mite more frustrated and a lot more tired than before. He failed to notice the pair of eyes watching him leave from just to the side of the window. Two small figures entered through the window. They were not halfling-sized, although they were short. Halflings, while short, also tended to have a certain stockiness about them. These figures were more like very short men, or perhaps older children. Barnabas, of course, would later swear it were goblins. They wore cloaks of black and secured hoods, and they removed these to listen to the heavy footfalls of Barnabas as he walked throughout the manor. Occasionally a curse would resound as he would begin to nod off and drop the spear. The subsequent crash would wake him up, elicit a curse, and restart the cycle. One figure, the shorter of the two, drew a small but wicked dagger and gave the other a knowing look. The other, who was both taller and more steady, simply lifted their hand. Almost as if on cue, they both heard the sound of something heavy striking the floor. The older quietly snuck out of the study to see what had happened and confirmed with a hand signal that Barnabas was indeed finally out cold. It had been a bothersome exercise to convince his wife, first by bribery, then by force, to drug him, and frankly they were both surprised that Barnabas was still standing after the dose that they had given him. But finally he was asleep, and the need for violence was abated. Carefully, finally alone, the two of them began their work of pillaging the study. "Barnabas Bramblepatch! Wake up, you useless sod!" Barnabas awoke with a jolt, recoiling to see a spear point looming over his face. He felt strangely tired and even more hungry, but he quickly looked around to see half a dozen sheriffs hurriedly rushing past. The mayor, his face red from shouting, was clearly upset that his house had been burgled under the watch of Barnabas Bramblepatch. Barnabas sighed as he realized how bad his day was going to be. There may be a trial, perhaps the involvement of solicitors and lawyers. Maybe he would even face jail time for negligence in his duties. However, the worst for Barnabas was yet to come, when he went home to find his wife asleep at the table, her face buried in an empty pie tin.